Well, happy Saturday, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly news roundup for July 15th, 2023. Every week, I take a look at some news stories, articles, and headlines from across our great state. As usual, you can find the links at freestatecolorado.com to all of these articles we discuss, plus much more. So pour yourself a cup of coffee and let's see what's going on in Colorado this week. First news story I'd like to talk about is from the centersquare.com. Joe Mueller, 16 hours ago, so July 14th. Colorado Signature Drive starts for initiative to cap property tax revenue at 4%. Beautiful picture here of Golden, kind of the western foothills part. A taxpayer advocacy group is backing Signature Gathering to put an initiative on Colorado's 2024 ballot that would require voter approval for any statewide property tax revenue increases above 4% annually. So just from that first sentence there, it seems like this is a good idea. It is unfortunate that it has to wait till the 2024 ballot before we see anything like this. But it's similar to what the Taxpayer Bill of Rights does, which does require voter approval for any increases in revenue collection above a certain limit. This seems like to do something a little bit similar, but not exactly the same. I would say this is a well-intentioned effort, but it doesn't go far enough in my mind. The initiative comes as Colorado awaits a ruling by the Supreme Court on the constitutionality of Proposition HH. Bad news. A November ballot initiative, that'll be this year in 2023, to reduce property taxes and use state tax refunds to pay for lost revenue. So, part of why HH is so terrible is because not only does it have minor property tax relief, that's the good part of the bill, but it's going to fill in the gap for that lost revenue by taking away our taxpayer bill of rights, our TABOR refunds. These refunds are our money that belong to us under the Constitution, and voters would be remiss to give those up unnecessarily. Totally not necessary to reduce our property taxes. There's other ways to reduce property taxes. After county assessors across Colorado predicted extraordinary increases in property taxes, the General Assembly quickly crafted and passed Senate Bill 23-303. Well, that last sentence is very wrong in many ways. County assessors, yes, and people knew in Colorado since 2020 that property taxes are going to skyrocket when amendment be passed. So this has been going on for years now. So the quickly part is totally wrong. Also, Senate Bill 303, it turns out, was worked on for months behind the scenes at the state legislature, with a lot of input from pro-government groups and lobbyists to figure out a way to take more of our tax money away from us. It was passed. I guess the quickly part is that it was passed and introduced in the last week of the legislative session, providing no opportunity for opposition, citizen input, or honest debate. So Senate Bill 303 was a very dishonest attempt that we're seeing now to take away our money, to take away money that belongs to us. Advance Colorado Action, a conservative advocacy group, is backing the signature drive. So Advance Colorado Action, as you can see, the action usually indicates it's like a political action committee. It's involved in direct lobbying or direct electioneering, I guess is the way to put it. Advance Colorado, which I'm guessing is the nonprofit that takes in the money but can't actually do direct electioneering. An adjacent group filed the petition with the Supreme Court last month, along with Colorado residents, elected officials, and a dozen counties. This is something we've been covering for weeks here. The initiative petition requires 124,238 valid signatures for Initiative 50 to appear on the November 2024 ballot. If you've ever been involved in petition gathering, you know that this 124,000 number is, of course, very important. But realistically, as the signature gatherers, they probably need to get closer to 200, 250,000 just to be on the safe side. Some of those names, signatures are going to be thrown out. They'll be found not valid. You know, people sometimes honestly just make a mistake, put the wrong address of where they moved, where they're not registered to vote, and sign their names wrong, or something catches up the system there and disqualifies the signature. So it's a massive undertaking like this for citizens to get on the ballot. I mean, if you're talking 200,000 signatures, some of these signature gathering companies charge quite a bit of money. I mean, this could be end up costing millions of dollars, right? The ballot language reads, shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning mandatory statewide voter approval to allow local governments to retain property tax revenue that exceeds 4% growth from total statewide property tax revenue collected in the preceding year, and in connection therewith, requiring any referred measure for such approval to be a standalone subject with specified language. So, a lot to unpack there for sure. Hard to say that there should be statewide approval for local governments to do something, but at the same time, it is a step in the right direction. I think it doesn't go far enough, as I mentioned earlier. Coloradans are facing a property tax crisis, Michael Fields of Advanced Colorado Action said in a statement. Since the legislature has failed to act, citizens are moving this measure forward to allow the voters to decide if they want to cap property tax increases. While this measure won't impact the spike in property taxes next year, it will have a significant impact in future years. Advanced Colorado also renewed its request for Polis to call the General Assembly into a special session to address the approaching drastic increase in property taxes. If Proposition HH passes, the organization claims it would take $10 billion in taxpayers' Bill of Rights refunds during the next 10 years, making it the largest tax increase in state history. Wow. So that's something voters really need to be aware of. You are giving up your tax refund, your tax rebate, if Proposition HH passes, one of the main reasons to oppose it. And of course, I disagree that the General Assembly should have a special session to address these issues. I know there's been some other people calling for a special session, like the state Republican Party. However, I would disagree that that's a good idea. I do not want the legislators back in the state House and state Senate working on ways to take away our liberty once again. So interesting. We'll keep an eye on this, of course. Issue that's very important. I'm doing a video series right now with the great Natalie Menton out of Jefferson County on property taxes and ways to reduce property taxes aside from Proposition HH. So this statewide ballot initiative, I think is well intentioned. It's a good idea, but it does leave a lot of room and opportunity for local liberty activists to come up with other solutions, such as reducing the mill levy rate and getting involved in your local political system to really make sure you have the Taxpayer Bill of Rights protections in your county and local government districts. Let's move on. This is from KKCO News 11, NBC News 11news.com. This is the Grand Junction or Western affiliate for NBC News. So, new study from CSI, that's the Common Sense Institute, shows crime is costing Colorado billions of dollars. From July 13th, 2023, Hannah Hickman, Grand Junction, Colorado. A new study from the Common Sense Institute shows the billions of dollars crime is costing Colorado. $27.2 billion is the estimated cost crime is having on the state. The report from the CSI shows summer homicides have spiked. Murder rates increased by 18% from the first half of 2022 to the first half of 2023. Wow, now that is horrible and shocking to see that murder rates are up this year by 18%. That's horrible. The study highlighted the cost of each murder has on the state, roughly $8.8 million. Adams and Denver counties account for 40% of the overall crime rate across the state. Wow. So in my mind, you want to create a place, you want to build a home where you can raise a family in safety and peace. Adams and Denver County do not seem to be the place to do it. Other key findings the report highlighted is the reduction in crime and how it would benefit the state. For every 1% decrease in crime, 474 jobs could be added, and $56.2 million would go back into the economy. If crime dropped to zero, insurance premiums could decrease by 25%, giving $1.71 billion back to consumers. Well, of course, crime is one of the biggest problems in our society. It's one of the biggest challenges that people have as property owners, as just citizens, as business owners. Your business is getting robbed, you're losing your money, you're losing your resources, you're constantly having to replace broken windows. In that situation, you're definitely at an economic disadvantage and are less likely or less able to provide goods and services to your community at a good price. So yes, crime is costing Colorado billions of dollars and decreasing the quality of life. It does have a massive economic impact. Let's go move on. This is from Complete Colorado, page 2. Definitely a website you should be checking out every day, CompleteColorado.com. providing you a news aggregator with stories that might be of interest to liberty-minded individuals across the state. So this article is from John Caldara on July 12th, 2023. Celebrate workers who step up to stop crime. So, as we've seen, crime rate is increasing. It seems out of control in certain areas. And as I've talked about in previous weeks, citizens are stepping up. People don't want to see this happen in their communities, at their place of employment. People want to fight back. And I think that's a trend we're only going to see continue if crime continues to increase. To the article. Remember when employees cared about their jobs and cared about the company for which they worked? We call it a work ethic. It meant that an employee felt like he too was part of the company. One of the reasons we see such poor work ethic today, such reluctance to get back to work after COVID, and such complacency to be on the dole is that companies give employees little autonomy and force them to become soulless robots. When you punish workers for showing any initiative, why would you be surprised when they show none? Here's a perfect story. On Father's Day, at the King Soopers in Centennial, three brazen thieves loaded up a shopping cart with scented laundry detergent. Laundry detergent, really? And rolled it out to their car to load it up and speed away. King Soopers employee Santino Barola was there to witness it. Trained not to physically intervene in any theft, he pulled out his phone to video the event. His color commentary was priceless. As the idiots were frantically shoving laundry detergent into their car, he mused to them, "Really, bros, you gotta resort to this? The economy is not that bad." As they sped off, Barola peeled off the aluminum foil they had covering their license plate, getting that on video as well. After posting this video on social media, which was shared by many, including rapper Snoop Dogg, the police arrested the driver, who, surprise, had multiple felonies but wasn't behind bars. Yay, Colorado. For his good work in catching thieves, caring about his employer, and saving customers money from shoplifters, Santino Barola didn't get a hearty slap on the back or even a job well done from his bosses at King Soopers. Instead, he got fired. We've all heard these stories of heroic employees who stopped shoplifters and held them until police came, only to be fired for their courageous deed. It boggles our collective minds to punish heroes as well as should. So, unfortunately, that's the reality here in Colorado and many other places where these big corporations care more about not getting sued, care more about some sort of PC policy than they do about their own employees who are stepping up and trying to protect the company. So, very sad and very unfortunate to see this kind of thing happen. Santino Barola is definitely somebody who got these people arrested. I mean, went out there, and tore the thing off their license plate. They got arrested and sent to jail, partially because of his efforts. And of course, King Soopers doesn't care about him as an employee. And, shame on King Soopers. They're just another big corporation. It doesn't really care much about people. And, shame on them. Really shame on them for what they've been doing. Of course, this isn't the first time we've seen them do this. And, Caldera is right. We should be celebrating the workers who step up to stop crime, celebrating the individuals in our community who are fighting for civilization by stopping these thieves and doing what they can to restore some sense of sanity to our state. Let's move on. Well, this is one to get your blood boiling here from the timescall.com, article originally from the Denver Pest. Colorado could ban the sale of gas-powered lawn tools in Metro Denver and the Northern Front Range by 2025. Wow. Regional Air Quality Council's proposal applies to the 9 counties in severe violation of federal clean air standards. Have you ever heard anything so Soviet and bureaucratic? The Regional Air Quality Council. I mean, come on. Some unelected board that decides what we can and can't do in our own communities. Absolutely, absolutely outrageous. This article was originally from updated on July 10th, 2023. Gas-powered chainsaws, push mowers, leaf blowers, and other lawn and garden equipment would disappear from stores in Metro Denver and the Northern Front Range by 2025 under a proposed air quality regulation working its way through Colorado's state government. The proposal, if ultimately approved, would require local governments in the state to stop using small gas-powered equipment during the summer by 2025, and it would ban commercial operators from using the equipment during the summer months by 2026. Gas tractors and large lawnmowers still would be allowed, and there would be some exceptions for using gas-powered equipment for forest and grasslands management and after natural disasters such as forest fires and tornado cleanups. The policy would only be effective in the 9 Front Range counties: Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, Douglas, Jefferson, Larimer, and Weld, that are in severe violation of federal clean air standards for ozone pollution. The sales ban would not be statewide. Wow, absolutely and utterly terrible. These people are a total nanny state trying to come in and tell us. I mean, it's sending us back to the Stone Age, right? I mean, you're banning some of the most efficient, some of the most amazing technology that's out there, trying to force people into this electric system that doesn't work so well. The Regional Air Quality Council, which recommends policies for improving air quality along the Front Range, formally recommended the regulation Friday during its regular monthly meeting. It next goes to the state's Air Quality Control Commission. So we get councils and commissions, of course, descending our lives, which would have to approve the regulation for it to become official state policy, and the commission can make changes to the council's proposal. But the council's board members, who represent local governments, state policymakers, and area industry, said the new rules are critical to improving the Front Range's poor air quality and reaching federally mandated clean air goals. Wow. So they basically want to criminalize the sale of gas motor materials, and that is absolutely horrible, shocking, and should be resisted at every level. But let's go ahead and move on. Very interesting Colorado Politics article. Democrats allege pattern of illegal meetings at Colorado's Capitol, from Hannah Metzger at coloradopolitics.com. July 10th, 2023, but updated 6 hours ago. So really on July 14th. Where's the state capitol? A pair of first-year Democratic lawmakers is suing the Colorado House of Representatives and the chamber's leaders from both parties, alleging lawmakers routinely participate in and leadership endorses meetings that break state law. Wow. The lawsuit claims that Democratic and Republican caucuses each held mandatory secret meetings at least weekly during the 2023 legislative session, directing legislative aides to omit, or disguise the meetings on legislators' calendars. Wow, that is totally illegal. There was no public notice provided, and minutes of the meetings were not made available to the public, in violation of Colorado's law governing open government meetings. Wow, so Colorado's sunshine laws that, allow the public to be aware when politicians are meeting, when elected officials are meeting to discuss policy. It's the right of the people to understand what is going on in the state government as well as local governments statewide. We've seen this with the school board in Denver, as well as in Douglas County recently. And of course, it's no surprise that this has been going on at the state legislature. The meetings were said to include presentations of legislation by bill sponsors, question and answer periods, and discussions of how members would vote on legislation. These discussions inform the course of legislative action, to be later taken publicly, and are routinely conducted outside of public view, without providing public notice, and without recording or publishing meeting minutes that the public can access. Representatives Elizabeth Epps of Denver and Bob Marshall of Highlands Ranch said in a suit filed on July 7th. They are being represented by attorney Steve Zansberg, who also represents Colorado Politics on First Amendment issues. Interesting. So, of course, Elizabeth Epps, you may remember that name. She's a Democratic Socialist of America, somebody who is behind the quote unquote assault weapons ban, one of the loudest voices for progressive policies in Denver, and unfortunately an authoritarian on most issues. Bob Marshall is one of the was elected on one of the slimmest margins in the state legislature and the state house in 2022, one of the top targets in 2024 for Republicans, of course, and kind of a strange guy who has a mixed history. So I think, for him, it's no surprise that he's maybe trying to make a name for himself, stand out from his colleagues, and appeal to some of the Republican base in his district, or unaffiliated base, maybe more precisely, to help him win his reelection. House Speaker Julie McCluskey, D. Dillon, and Majority Leader Monica Duran, D. Wheatridge, said they are still reviewing the complaint in full when asked for comment on the lawsuit. House Democratic leadership is committed to open and transparent government, ensuring a fair and public process for policymaking, they said in a statement. Yeah, right. We stand by our caucus, dedicated public service servants who work tirelessly on behalf of their constituents. Yeah, right. I mean, these are dedicated career politicians who work tirelessly on behalf of special interests, I think would be more accurate. Along with House Minority Leader Mike Lynch, R. Wellington, McCluskey, and Duran are named as defendants in the lawsuit. Other defendants include the chamber itself, as well as both of its caucuses. House Republican Deputy Chief of Staff Roger Hudson criticized the lawsuit, calling it a distraction to the priorities that Coloradans care about. Interesting. This lawsuit is what Coloradans hate about politics at the Capitol, Hudson said in a statement. Republicans continue to believe that the people of Colorado deserve access to their government through comprehensive open meetings and open records laws. We welcome any conversation that will update our statutes to keep up with rapidly evolving technology. The lawsuit also claims that both party caucuses regularly use the encrypted messaging service Signal to discuss public business outside of public view, with the messages set for automatic deletion. Messages allegedly discussed policy in real time during committee hearings, with legislators communicating about witness testimonies and their expected votes on legislation. This should definitely be made public. 100% agree with that. So keep reading if you're interested. This is an issue that I care a lot about as a liberty activist, somebody who really advocates for more transparency and more openness in the government. I think maybe on some level we even need body cameras for politicians. You know, when they're in the state legislature, turn those body cameras on. Let's give the public full access to what these politicians are doing. Kind of half joking there, but there definitely needs to be more transparency and more accessibility for the public to really see the inner workings of our state government. Let's move on. This is from DenverGazette.com, article by Jesse Mallory, one of the great liberty activists here in Colorado, from July 9th, 2023. Colorado can't afford another energy price hike. So, of course, this article might be slightly dated because on July 11th, citizens had the opportunity to let the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, Xcel Energy in particular, hear what they have to say about raising our energy rates. But I think this article still applies because this is an ongoing issue and is not going away. To the article. In the past 5 years, Xcel Energy has been granted 5 rate increases by the Colorado Public Utilities Commission. Of course, this is the problem with government monopolies. Xcel Energy should not be the only ones deciding when energy is available to the people of Colorado. And of course, this Colorado Public Utilities Commission, these commissions, these Soviet era type of ideas, organizations are the ones that are really protecting Xcel Energy and other monopolies such like them. The PUC is hosting a listening campaign encouraging Coloradans to give feedback to the energy company. On July 11th, citizens will have the opportunity to let the utility and its supposed regulators know how they feel. We urge every Coloradan to raise their voices in protest. The PUC's astronomical rate hikes have cost Coloradans hundreds of extra dollars every month in skyrocketing cooling costs. Combined with the inflationary and big spending policies of Governor Jared Polis and Denver Democrats, this is the new status quo in Colorado. As summer arrives, temperatures in Colorado are starting to rise, and ratepayers are fed up. Back in January, the Public Utilities Commission tried to justify these increases by comparing them to natural gas price increases. For a typical Xcel customer, the electric utility bills are up maybe 20 to 25%, as opposed to gas bills, which have increased more like 75%, according to Aaron O'Neill, the PUC's chief economist, said. The utilities don't operate in a free market. They are government created monopolies, guaranteed a profit. Their rates are set by the government, in our case, the Colorado Public Utilities Commission. Their costs and materials are affected by the free market, but they don't compete with other companies like the producers, wholesalers, and retailers of gasoline do. The PUC's economist comparison is bogus. Because they're protected from competition, regulators and their legislature are supposed to provide oversight to protect ratepayers. Both have been falling down on the job. Not only are they not protecting ratepayers, they're actively making the situation worse. So Jesse Mallory is 100% right on this. The biggest problem we have with our energy, our electricity in Colorado, is that it is government monopoly protected by the Colorado Public Utilities Commission. If there was a way to open up the market to different competitors, I think naturally prices would decrease, quality of service would increase. So that needs to be a future goal of the liberty movement. Let's move on. A couple more stories here. Want to bring this one back up. This is a story that should not be forgotten. FBI just recently came out with some more information talking about the reward in this Life Choices arson in Boulder County. So this is from the dailycamera.com. Life Choices arson suspects have Boulder County ties. So you may remember when this happened here. This is from Prairie Mountain Media and Johnson Kuhn. A video issued on Tuesday by the FBI's, this is from, well, let's go back here. This is from July 12th, July 13th, 2023, so just a couple days ago. A video issued on Tuesday by the FBI's Denver office confirmed that the suspects in last year's arson at Longmont's Life Choices Pregnancy Center have ties to Boulder County. No surprise there. It has been a year since arsonists attacked the Life Choices building in Longmont, Colorado. FBI is offering a $25,000 reward in the case. FBI, Denver, and Longmont PS, I'm guessing that's the police, need your help to identify the suspect. We know the subjects have ties in and around the Boulder County area, and we know there are people in our community who know who they are, an FBI Denver special agent stated in the video. On June 25th, the pregnancy center at 20 Mountain View Avenue was set on fire and vandalized the day after the U.S. Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade. The center operates as a Christ-centered ministry and provides free pregnancy tests, baby clothes, along with support services related to unplanned pregnancy. However, it does not provide abortion services. Well, good for them. As of January, the reward was raised to $25,000, which is an increase from $20,000 in November and $10,000 from the beginning of the investigation in June of last year. So this is something that should not be forgotten, that you have radical, really, pro-abortion activists who are willing to burn buildings down, destroy property, and maybe even commit other acts of violence in order to enforce their agenda. And that is not a good thing. These people have not been caught. And unfortunately, they're still out there. So let's move on. Very interesting article that kind of shows some of the split between some of our metro areas, metro area governments. This is from the denverpest.com. The next time Denver asks for help during street protests, Aurora police might not come. Mayor Mike Kaufman plans to introduce a resolution on July 17th about indemnifying Aurora's officers. This is from a photo from May 30th, 2020, with the George Floyd protests in downtown Denver near Civic Center Park. It's articles from Saja Hindi, July 12th, 2023. If the city of Denver doesn't agree to accept full legal liability for Aurora police officers' actions and pay for all lawsuits that stemmed from the 2020 racial justice protests in Denver, Aurora could end its partnership agreement with its neighboring city. That's what a resolution would do, if approved, that Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman plans to introduce at the July 7th City Council meeting. The agreement would not apply to regular police operations or task force participation, Kaufman noted. But it would apply to future protests or civil unrest in which Denver asks for assistance and Aurora officers could act under Denver police's direction. Aurora and other municipalities sent officers to assist with responding to the massive demonstrations in May and June 2020 when thousands of people protested in Denver. Police repeatedly used excessive force against demonstrators, according to a report from Denver's police watchdog, but a lack of accurate record keeping made it difficult to determine which officers or agencies were responsible for undue violence. Dozens of lawsuits have been filed against Denver and its officers related to the use of excessive force during the protests, and Aurora and its officers have also been named in several lawsuits. So, very interesting to see. Like I was saying earlier with the article about crime continues to increase. There's a potential for more of these types of protests or riots. And with, regardless of who's right, who's wrong, seeing that the police are being hamstrung or reluctant to get involved, it kind of creates a new situation, right? A new situation in which law enforcement's not going to get involved. And what are the citizens supposed to do? What are the business owners and property owners supposed to do in these types of situations as we see the likelihood of law enforcement to protect the community decrease? Interesting consequences. In May of this year, Aurora sued Denver, as the Denver Post previously reported, highlighting a political rift between the two cities and their disagreement over state law. Aurora has asked a judge to require Denver to indemnify its officers, or assume all liability resulting from Aurora's police response to civil unrest in Denver beginning in May of 2020. So very interesting to see how this will play out and to see this split among metro area governments. Last article of the week. Now, this one is something that could become very controversial as we get closer to the 2024 elections, of course. This is from the Kiowa County Press, kiowacountypress.net. Secretary, so that's Secretary Jena Griswold, won't say whether Trump can access Colorado ballot. So that's right. You may not have heard, but there's going to be an effort among Secretary of States and Democratic states across the United States to prevent Donald Trump from getting on the presidential ballot. Wow. This is from Quentin Young. The left-wing Colorado Newsline is where this article originated. I'm sure they're pretty excited about this. The Colorado Secretary of State declined to say whether she will grant ballot access to former President Donald Trump, who is running for president in 2024. We are going to officially decline to comment at this time, Annie Orloff, spokesperson for Democratic Secretary Jena Griswold, said in a response to an inquiry from the left-wing Democratic Front Colorado Newsline. In Colorado, the Secretary of State has authority over the ballot qualification process. The absence of an affirmative response from Griswold to the question of whether Trump's name will be permitted to appear on the Colorado presidential ballot comes as pressure for her to deny ballot access on constitutional ground intensifies, and a watchdog group says lawsuits over the matter are assured. So where's this pressure coming from, right? Pretty easy answer there. Many pro-democracy advocates, so that's interesting. Pro-democracy advocates are basically telling somebody they shouldn't be on the ballot. Now, how is that democratic? It's a great question. So the nonprofit advocacy groups Free Speech for People and Mi Familia Vota Education Fund sent letters to chief election officials in 9 states requesting they exclude Trump from their state's ballots. Wow. So I don't know that this is going to happen. I think it would be too far of a stretch. But again, with the way the world is right now, it's hard to see. Um, it's hard to say that this won't happen, I guess, on some level. You would think that the Secretary of State would not make such a bold move by restricting Trump from the ballot. I mean, it would cause massive, massive potential civil unrest. At the very least, it would delegitimize the Secretary of State's office on some level. So it's hard to think that Griswold would go along with this. However, this day and age, it's hard to say whether it's hard to say what these people are going to do. But anyways, that's what we got this week. Lots of interesting news stories. We'll keep you updated throughout every week here in freestatecolorado.com. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Take care, and we'll see you next time.